Donald Trump's hardline policies on immigration have certainly proven that he is a hypocrite when it comes to his own practices. Now, that was true when he was newly elected and he actually raised the cap on the number of foreign workers who could come in the country because he wanted those foreign workers to work on his properties. And it's also certainly true when you look at the number of women who are quitting their jobs at various Trump properties throughout the country in order to come forward and share the fact that they're A, undocumented, and B, employers within these Trump properties seem to either know about it or hide it from Secret Service during the 2016 election and even a little after that. So one of the women who came forward is Ana Torres. She is an immigrant from Ecuador, and she said that she informed a human resources official at one of Trump's golf clubs in Bedminster, New Jersey, that she did not have papers to live legally in the United States when she was asked to submit her information for a clearance check. Now, the Secret Service was supposed to do a clearance check because Trump was going to visit. And she said that the names of undocumented workers were then excised from a list turned over to the Secret Service. So basically, her employers at this golf club, Trump-owned golf club, hid the fact that she was an undocumented worker. So she continued working there until recently when she decided to come forward and share her story.
Now let's talk about, there's two things, right? We're gonna focus mainly on the hypocrisy of knowingly hiring undocumented immigrants, which his organizations did, and we'll see if you think that that applies to Trump as well. But secondly, for now, let's talk about how dangerous this is. So she was the assistant to the chef. She made the food for the president and the Secret Service, but they didn't tell the Secret Service about her. So, I mean, they're always like, oh my God, security and this, that, and they're coming in and we're all in a lot of danger. Right now, if you're in the Secret Service, you are super mad, okay? And because you're like, wait, I mean, that's the most critical thing. Who's in the building? The Secret Service has to know who's in the building. Not only that, the person who cooked the food. I mean, you literally couldn't have a worse person that you didn't tell us about. And it's not just endangering Trump's life. Now they might be a little less concerned about that. It also endangers their lives.
Exactly.
I just want to say how dangerous immigrants are in this country. While they're cooking you delicious meals, they're dangerous.
Yeah,
everybody.
But by the way, though, it does, in all seriousness, though, it does now open up. If you want to do harm to the president, vice president, Secret Service, government officials, the way in is go undocumented into a Trump property. You won't get on the Secret Service list. I mean, that's a roadmap.
He houses MS-13. They're gangs, they're drug dealers, and they're rapists. Hey, they may have slipped some of those drugs that exude from their pores into the meal, and then somebody can end up high. These super creatures.
Yeah, it's amazing because one of the first women who came forward was profiled in the New York Times. And she actually had a very positive view of Trump up until the 2016 election. She said that he was very pleasant, that he seemed to be very grateful for the work that she was putting into his properties. She was actually responsible for not only cleaning his room, but also cleaning Ivanka Trump's room. And so she even said one time she ran into him, he thanked her for her work and gave her a $50 tip. So she was like, I actually really liked him and I felt grateful for this job. And then the election comes around and it was like a completely different person. And so she felt so insulted on a regular basis following his election that she just felt like, this isn't even a safe place for me to work anymore. He's willing to do anything and everything just to rile up his political base.
Well, I just want to say two quick things about that. Well, number one, that's actually the nicest thing I've ever heard about Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Emma Torres said, when he won the election, fear took over me. I felt I was in the lion's den, I had to leave. No, but Emma, you were wrong. You were actually in the safest place possible. Because if you want to be an undocumented immigrant in America, the place to do it is at a Trump property. Because you'll be perfectly safe. That's where the president's gonna be like, I don't know, they work for me for cheap. I'm keeping them.
So there is an attorney who's actually representing a number of these undocumented workers. Annabelle Romero is her name, a Newark-based immigration attorney, said that he now represents 5 immigrants who say they worked at Trump's Bedminster Club in New Jersey without legal status in recent years. Investigators with the FBI and the New Jersey Attorney General's office have collected employment documents on his clients in recent months, an indication that the agencies may be scrutinizing the hiring practices of the president's club. So it's yet another Trump-related issue that's being investigated, and we'll see what the outcome is. Trump's camp argues that they had absolutely no idea, and any employee within Trump's properties who was caught doing something like this will be fired immediately. I don't believe anything that Trump or anyone on his side says about this. I think that he has knowingly employed undocumented immigrants throughout his life. Look, this is my speculation.
No, it's not speculation, it's a fact. He hired undocumented Polish immigrants to work on his construction projects earlier. He's been caught over and over again hiring undocumented immigrants. So he's an unbelievable liar. Look here, I'll give you one more clue. Look, if you care and you're an independent, then you can be convinced and you make up your own mind. The MAGA guys are gonna be like, no, I hate undocumented immigrants, but when Trump does it, it's smart business and awesome. And you can't argue with people who refuse to believe in logic, right? So, but in 2016, in the fall, as he's opening up his new hotel in Washington, Trump came out and said this. He said, to the assembled audience, right? He's doing this big grand thing and he said, we didn't have one illegal immigrant on the job, everybody knows it. What a weird thing to say. I've never come out here and be like, you know what guys, I don't have any illegal immigrants here. I don't have any undocumented immigrants at all, right? It's like the example is a guy randomly walks into the room and goes, I'm not gay. You're like, wait, nobody asked you. Well, what's going on, right? So who goes to a press conference and goes, I don't have any undocumented immigrants building this hotel. None of them at all, not one. No one can prove it. Okay, of course he's done it his whole life. He's a lifelong criminal. So he knows, maybe that's why he uses it as an issue. He's like, everybody does it, I know I do it. So that's why people are mad about it, and I hire them, so I pay them less than I would pay an American worker, and that pisses off my workers and people I didn't hire. So that'll be a good campaign issue. God, are you not bothered by any of the monstrous hypocrisy?
So I want to actually add one more thing to that, because I assumed that he was just looking for cheap labor, and it might very well be the case that he paid these undocumented workers a little less than American workers, but he was paying them a lot more than minimum wage. In fact, some of these women said that they were paid upwards of $14 an hour, and I think that's relevant, right?
Yeah, but at the Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster Club, the rates might be much higher for those jobs. And secondarily, there's another advantage you get in hiring undocumented workers. They can't complain. So you could have less safety, less regulations, et cetera, and you've got leverage over them. And so, look, when he used it for the construction projects on a mass scale, he saved a tremendous amount of money. And maybe he just got in the habit, right? He's like, oh, these undocumented immigrants are awesome. You can do anything to them. So, and they work so hard. Right?
Everyone that's ever personally known a racist knows that he has his best black friend, best whatever kind of friend, so they can brag to other people, hey, I'm not actually a racist. I know someone that I've treated decently that is of that minority group that I actually hate. My neighbor is a skinhead, I found out later. But when I walked past him, he goes, hey, how you doing? And I saw him talking later and I was like, oh, you're a POS. So then so in front of you, they're not gonna do it because they're not emboldened enough to yet. But when the president, including the rest of his followers, have normalized it so much that now it's a thing, like, you know what? We can stop that whole fake facade of acting like we don't hate certain people. That's what he's done.
I personally think, and this is a crazy theory I think I've come out. I was reading this article, it blew my mind, that it's by this guy named Stuart Anderson, and he wrote this amazing article about how in the summer of 2014, his two of his confidants, this guy named Roger Stone and Sam Nunberg, they were trying to make immigration for him to have immigration as a forefront topic to discuss with his candidates, with his base basically, and somehow he just couldn't retain that information every time, as he can't retain a lot of information, he couldn't retain it. So they came up with a trick that they were like, we're gonna come up with a mnemonic device, what it's gonna be. So they said, hey, next time you go on to Iowa, why don't you try this out? Why don't you throw out the fact that we're gonna build a wall, the wall, And the moment he said that, the crowd went nuts. and they found their hook. They were like, that's gonna be the hook. And they're running this hook all the way. They don't care who gets trampled in the way. They don't care how many federal workers are not gonna get paid. They are sticking to the wall. That's their hook.
So what Mona says there is actually really, really important, because it isn't just Donald Trump, it's the voters. He A/B tested his message. And what the voters responded to was the racism and the bigotry. And Steve King has a similar story. He, of course, doesn't paint it in that way, but he said he was in Iowa, and when he was first running for Congress, and he said, oh, we should have, it was just like a throwaway line, we should have English as the official language. And the crowd went nuts. He's like, oh yeah, that's what I meant. English as the official language, because we can't stand the immigrants. People went nuts. He's like, yeah, that's it. Yeah. I can't stand the immigrants. They're actually responding to the racism of the Republican voters. And a lot of times the media covers up for them and whitewashes it and says, oh, it's just Trump. It's just not the rest of the Republican party. It's, oh, the Republican voters, don't talk about them. No, the problem is the Republican voters.
Absolutely.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.